Hey y'all, so from that picture what you saw was my entire reloading setup, this workbench area here. Now I have kind of a condensed area to reload because I live in a smaller apartment, so I don't have all the room in the world to work with. And plus, with being on the third floor, I have to do different things to keep the noise down. So what I figured I would do is I was going to do a video today talking about what workarounds I've come up with to ensure that I can do all my reloading in a small area and do it quietly enough not to disturb my neighbors. So what I'm going to do is I'm pretty much going to go through my whole setup and I'm going to walk you through the processes from dirty case to new cartridge. So one of the big things when reloading is you've got to clean your brass. Now there's many different methods to cleaning your brass, but a lot of them, like tumblers and stuff, they can be kind of loud. Dry tumblers and stuff can be kind of loud, and especially with being on the third floor, anything I sit on my floor, especially if it's a tumbler or something running for 3 hours, is going to annoy my neighbors. So I knew that was out, so I was trying to find a way I could clean my brass but not get kicked out. So the workaround I came up with that is an ultrasonic cleaner. Now the nice thing about these is, unlike a dry tumbler, they don't really kick up any dust because everything's in the water and it's contained, and you can put it into a jug and dispose of it that way. But it's also very quiet. You know, I can sit this on here and it basically just sounds like a low buzzing noise. That's all the sound it generates. So it makes it that I don't have to worry about disturbing my neighbors by having a big tumbler that's going to rattle and shake and vibrate and sound like basically an angry washing machine from downstairs. So what I'll do is I will clean my brass in this, and then the other thing I use to dry my brass is a food dehydrator, and I have it, it's about this big, and actually I will show you right now. Give me one sec. And just like that, there's my food dehydrator. Now, several reasons why I like the food dehydrator. One, it is fairly on the quiet side. All it is just an electric motor that blows air through them, and well, in this case it dries the brass. It doesn't really dehydrate them, but I guess it kind of does if you consider drying dehydrating. But I like about it because even though this unit itself is kind of bulky, you can fit a lot of brass. Like when you pull the top off here, I can take several hundred casings and have them on each layer and fill up each layer, and you can dry a lot of brass on this. Like I can fill up my ultrasonic cleaner 2 or 3 times and lay them out on this, and it's still not completely full. So you can dry quite a lot of brass on this for its size. And when I'm done with this, I can just put this away in the closet and use it again when I need it, and I don't have to worry about there being any mess or anything because all it is just a food dehydrator. So that's my preferred method for drying brass. So now we're going to talk about the press itself. Now that we've cleaned our brass and dried it. So this is my actual workbench. Now I have my press mounted over here for several reasons. One of the things is I know some people have dedicated workbenches for reloading, and the problem is for me, I didn't have anywhere to put a second reloading bench, so I knew I needed to be able to use my normal workbench for reloading, but I still wanted to be able to use it for everything else because I do gun cleaning here, I do a lot of different stuff on here, and I also shoot reviews and videos. For anybody that follows the channel, you'll notice this mat in a lot of my videos, so I do a lot of my reviews right here. So I couldn't put my press over here in the middle because then it would basically dedicate the bench to just that. So my other thing was I couldn't take this and mount it all the way over here by itself, because then when you go to operate the arm, you're basically running your arm into the side of the wall. So how I got around that was I did 2 things. One, I reinforced this. Now this is not the original top, this is just a standard Harbor Freight workbench, and they're like 99 bucks at Harbor Freight. Sometimes you get the coupon. I went to Lowe's and got like an inch thick tabletop, refinished it, and bolted to the top of this so that I gave myself a solid anchoring point, because the top was originally just like particle board or something, and I knew it wasn't going to stand up to having the press go back and forth. And in fact, you know, at this point my tabletop is now stronger than the workbench. Like if I give this a real good shake, the whole table shakes, not the top, which that's not necessarily something with my thing. That's just the workbench isn't the highest of quality. But um, so what I ended up doing was I reinforced the top, and then I got this ultra mount. And what the ultra mount did, it did two nice things. Was it raised the press up, so I'm kind of on the tall side, and I'm sitting in just a standard like workbench stool. So it raised it up so that I didn't have to be hunched over trying to work on my cartridges. It brought it up to pretty much almost eye level, and it made working with cartridges much easier. The other thing it did was it made it that I could turn it. So rather than having it all the way over here and having it straight on, where I'm trying to work everything here and everything's coming away from me, I've got it turned enough so that everything is coming towards me now. So I can sit here basically in the center of the workbench and run this without any issue and without having to overextend myself. The other thing that was nice about the Ultra mount was I didn't lose the access to these drawers. There are drawers under here that I do keep stuff in, and if I had put the press right here in the front, I would have lost access to one of these drawers. But because I put it on the mount, and it completely lifts the entire press up off of the like the tabletop, I can still use the drawers. Now I have gotten asked before about the primer tube, a spent primer tube. And what I did was originally I had it just coming off the edge of the table, and then it just caught them and whatnot. I found it was easier to actually cut the primer tube, and it's only now about that long, but it's still got the little red cap on it, so it still catches the primer. So every few hundred rounds or so, I just lift this up and pop this off and dump them out, and you keep going. So really not a big issue at all. But that was how I worked around for that. So once I get my press all set up, I get my dies and everything set up. I've tried to keep everything on the Ultra mount when it comes to reloading. So I didn't want to have separate powder measures or stuff like I've seen some people have setups where like they have their powder measure on the edge of the table or different stuff like that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep everything on the press. So originally what I did was I attached my powder measure, which I use a Lee Perfect powder measure. I originally attached to the back of the Ultra mount, which worked great. Recently, actually very recently, in fact yesterday, I got one of the, there's an adapter so I can take the Perfect powder measure and put it on my expander die. So now every single step to reload a cartridge is on this press. So it's all in one contained thing. And that's what I like about turret presses is when I first started getting into reloading, I was looking at all the different presses, turret, single stage, progressive, and I found the turret is the nicest because I can take a spent cartridge, I can take this and turn it into this with 4 pulls of the handle, and I don't necessarily have to have a bunch of extra cases sitting out. So I can have my container of empty cartridges and my box of finished, and I don't have to have all this stuff laid out, so I can put it in, do all the steps, put the bullet in, put the powder in, put everything in, and end up with a bullet that can go from step 0 to step, the final step, all in one go. So that's what I found to be the greatest for saving space on my bench itself, was having this setup with a turret press and giving me the ability to do it all at once. I've been using this setup now for about 6 months, a little over that, and I found it works quite well for me. I am constantly changing stuff. Like I said, just yesterday I got the adapter in the mail to mount my powder measure on the press itself, which I am anxious to use. But like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm hoping this helps some people because I know not everybody has a big house where they can lay everything out and have a dedicated workbench. With me, I'm not cramped by any means, but I'm short on room, and I do have to be careful because of my neighbors. I can't have certain equipment sitting running for hours at a time, and not have to worry about that. Where if somebody who had a garage could easily run a normal tumbler and just have it run in their garage for a few hours, I don't have that. So this is my setup, and yeah, any questions or comments, feel free to put them down below, and have a good day.